You are where you're meant to be. Nothing is wasted. Life is happening for you and not to you. So how can you release the pressure that you're putting on yourself? That's my hope for you, is that you relieve that pressure valve. Hello and welcome to the Unlock Lab. I am super glad that you're here today. And I'm glad that you're here because not only do I think this is going to be an episode that serves you, I think it's going to be an episode that will help people that you know. What I'm talking about today is what to do when you are in between jobs, in between opportunities, either by force or by choice. So whether you decided to leave a job because it wasn't working out, or whether you got laid off or you got fired, whatever happened, this episode is to help you navigate those times. And I have 8 clear suggestions for how to do that. And I'm going to walk you through all 8 of them with some stories in between, with a passionate advocacy for you to use this time in your life in a way that uplifts you and serves you. I hope you find hope in this episode. But before I dive in to all the details, all the goodness, all the practical tips, first, let me say welcome if you're new to the podcast. I'm Tosca DiMatteo, and I'm the founder of Tosca Coaching and Consulting. I help professionals get out of their own way. I do one-on-one coaching. I facilitate deep conversations within teams. I also do keynote speaking. If you are looking for answers to the question, what now or what next when it comes to your career, I'm the person to come to. To learn more, visit CoachTosca.com. That's Coach TOSCA.com. Okay, so this episode feels like a bit of a homecoming. In fact, I can't even believe I haven't done one yet. And this is episode 71. If this is not an indication that I cannot run out of things to say, I don't know what is. And that's because this topic is so near and dear to my heart. I'm so passionate about helping people with these moments of life that we're not used to, we're not accustomed to, or we don't have the tools to navigate in healthy ways that actually serve us. I know this on a personal level because I have been in between jobs, in between clients on my entrepreneurial business, and I have helped so many people through the uncertainty that is the gap of our lives, of our career lives, especially. And my heart goes out to everyone in this situation. And I know there are a lot of people in the in-between right now. And that's either, again, as a former employee of a company, or maybe as an entrepreneur, you're in between either gigs or in between clients, or maybe you don't have anything on the roster. This episode will be for anybody who kind of feels like they are in between jobs, in between opportunities. And the reason why all these scenarios are getting rolled up into this one episode is because it's all basically about times that catch us off guard, that we are not familiar with most of the time. And in all these cases, I believe, based on lots of evidence, that what's coming after this gap is so much better and so much more magical than what came before it. So my hope is not only that you gain some tools about what to do when you're in between jobs or opportunities, but also that you find a hopefulness and an excitement for this moment. Because let's just be honest, these moments in between, they don't come very frequently in our life. If we're really honest about it, it is a blip in our timeline of our life. But we put so much pressure on ourselves about how to manage it, how to deal with it, and how to quickly get to the other side. That actually leads me to the first of my 8 pieces of recommendation that I'm going to share with you today. And the first recommendation is to take a pause. Yes, the actual pause of enjoying yourself, of enjoying the in-between. This pause is critical because this is our opportunity to actually integrate what has just happened. And whether that integration means accepting a decision that you didn't make, but that was forced upon you, or whether that integration was about the decision that you made, but now you're actually dealing with the ramifications of that decision, Either way, taking a pause is so important before jumping into what's next. I think these times in between actually create this whole new experience of freedom. And that's on many levels, right? Freedom of time, freedom of how you use your days, perhaps, freedom from energies that were not serving you, whether that was with the people that you were interacting with or the situations you were in or the activities that you didn't like. And so taking this pause allows you to like, woo saw, literally sit back and be like, what does it feel like now in my body now that this thing has ended? Again, whether it was your choice or not, but to just feel into that. How does it feel now that this thing has ended? So I want to actually pause on this idea of endings because I want to direct you to an episode that I've recorded. It was episode 43 and it was called How to Wrap Up a Season with a Bow. And that episode talked a lot about kind of end of year, season stuff, but it's applicable to any kind of chapter that's closing or chapter that's ending because I think it's super relevant for when we're in between because part of being in between is processing what has just ended. So I will just put a pin in that and just know that that is a wonderful resource for you to explore in addition to this episode right here. Okay, so taking a pause, like I said, is step one. It's about integrating, it's about enjoying yourself, about understanding what this newfound freedom is. And dare I say, it's also about celebrating what needs celebrating. So that can range from anything from how you handled a difficult situation to how you made a difficult choice without having all the things together, about celebrating your courage to choose what was best for you. Maybe it's just about celebrating you for just being who you are and knowing that you are way more than your identity in whatever job you have. You are way more than what's happened to you. You are way more than your life experiences. You are perfect just the way you are. There is nothing wrong with you. So, whatever happened, by choice, by force, whatever thing has ended, find what is there for you to celebrate. Maybe it's the celebrating the end of a chapter so that you can call in that new chapter, even if it's not feeling great for you right now. Celebrating what was, celebrating what you did accomplish, celebrating how you added to your resume or added to your repertoire and that experience that just ended. I'm telling you, if you take the time, you will find a lot of things to celebrate. And if you want to start a celebration journal and really document that, to really look backward and say, yeah, what body of work, what relationships have I built? How have I grown personally and professionally by what just ended? This is all part of what you can do in taking a true pause. And when I say taking a true pause, I mean that you're not focused on what's next quite yet. That will come. That will come. But this pause is so critical after something just ended because there's a lot of work to be done in that pause and a lot of celebrating and a lot of just being. All right, I can tell I'm just gonna rant and preach on this episode because there's so much I want to share with you. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move into number two. Number two is to normalize this gap that we're talking about. We were never told that it was okay to have career breaks. This is not part of our societal messaging. I mean, I recently met a woman who has been working straight from the age of 17 to 64 with no breaks. And my hope is that we live in a world where this is not the norm. Because what is normal in nature, in life, in anything really, is that all things do come to an end at some point, right? At some point, the tree will die. At some point, the relationship will shift and change. So coming to an end of a job, coming to an end of even like a chapter of our career, coming to the end of maybe even our client roster is normal. It's part of the natural cycle of life. Let's normalize for ourselves. Yeah, like it's actually not unheard of to get laid off or to get fired. It's not unheard of to leave a job that's no longer filling your cup or making you feel good, even without having something in hand. All of these are things that happen all the time. It's just maybe not been the most talked about thing. Now, I will say that since the pandemic, it's definitely something that's more talked about. But pre 2020, oh my gosh, taboo, right? To put something on your resume that identified that you had an in-between time. Now I guarantee if you go on LinkedIn and you look for people, you will find gaps that are explained by saying something like, I traveled the world, I experimented with life, I gave myself a career break. Like now it is becoming more normal. So I want to land the point here that it is normal to have a life experience where we are in between things. It is normal to have a pause between jobs, between careers, between life stages. And like if you want more evidence, right? We are even so pressured, right? To not have breaks when even having kids, right? Maternally or paternally. Those breaks that are given are usually super, super short. So that's just more evidence that we are not, as a society, it's not yet ingrained in us that we deserve breaks for big life things. So just suffice it to say that, my friend, this is not out of the norm. There is nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with this break, with this pause. It is normal and it is part of what life is. So that brings me to number 3, right? Which is processing your emotions because they are there even if you don't know it. No matter the nature of why you are without a job or in between clients, it's going to bring big emotions. And my advice to you is to let them rise and let them come up. I think what people don't expect are feelings of grief, feelings of frustration, and feeling out of control. And this grief comes from the loss of relationships that we used to have in our jobs or with our clients, or it might be grief, ambiguous grief of a future that will no longer be possible that maybe we imagined. Maybe we imagined retiring from a particular job, and that's not possible now. So I invite you to not bury those things that you're feeling because really what we need to do is move through those feelings so that we're not bringing them to the next opportunity. One of the tools you can use for this is to journal and to journal daily. Let it out. See what you're thinking. Tap into what you're feeling behind those thoughts. By allowing this stuff to come up, you can feel it, release it, and trust that you'll alchemize it and move past it by moving through it. My big fat red flag, I'll say it again because I think it deserves to be said again, is not to bury your feelings in this time. You can easily say, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I made this decision. Or I shouldn't be feeling this way because I know this has happened to so many people. There's all these shoulding that we do about our feelings. And the reality is like, it's best not to do that. It's best to say, oh, this is how I'm feeling. Feel the damn thing and then let it transform. I have a whole nother podcast episode about feeling your feelings. So check that one out too. So part of this, like feeling your feelings and like journaling and understanding your emotions is to pay attention to the stories you're telling yourself about this moment. Are these stories dragging you down or are they lifting you up? You see, these in between times in our life where there's a lot of uncertainty and unknowns, they're ripe for our inner critics to come in and take over. And I implore you not to let your inner critic come in and take over the reins of your life. And listen, again, I'm going to direct you to some of my episodes that I have on inner critics. If you want more support in this area, episode 7 is like my episode on like inner critic 101. And then I have a whole inner critic series with different inner critics that may come up for you during these times in the in between. So here's a huge action step for you is to pay attention to what you're saying to yourself so that you can choose the stories that you're telling yourself, right? We can say to ourselves, I wasn't good enough. And so therefore XYZ happened versus, you know what? that chapter has come to a close. And it was just something that was forced upon me to see. But that is the truth, that that chapter was ready to be closed. The story that you're telling yourself has a huge impact on your feelings, and it has a huge impact on the narrative that you're telling others. But again, I'm not going to digress into that. That's a whole nother episode too, right? I have episodes about the stories we tell ourselves and others. Okay. Speaking of truths, my tip number 4 is to take a look at the truth of your financial situation, because this inner critic, this financial inner critic, can be the absolute loudest in these situations. And of course, right? Because you need to be taken care of, right? Food, shelter, the basics of our needs. And our inner critics can show up if they're afraid that, like, you're not going to get your needs met, right? And this inner critic can gain in power and prevalence during these in between times because you are actually believing what it says. You are believing that you need to get a job tomorrow or you're not going to be able to pay rent, for example. And look, this can be a tough task that I'm asking you, which is to look at the truth of your financial situation, because we often carry baggage around money that's not serving us, and our history with managing money and our history with surviving and thriving in life. But here's the thing, by you really sitting down and looking at your financials, by you really looking at the truth of what your financial situation is, this is the antidote to your inner critic. Because oftentimes our inner critic is telling us a story that's not true, or it's like this worst case scenario that we believe. And this is a great way for you to take the pressure off of yourself by being like, oh, actually, in a worst case scenario, I can actually support myself for the next year and a half because, oh, I have these savings. I can take this money out of, this account or this, investment account or whatever the case might be. But we don't think about things in this way. Oftentimes, we got money sitting in savings that we don't give ourselves permission to use during these times, when actually these times are exactly why we have savings accounts. I'm saying this not just from my own personal experience, but in experiences with clients where we just have to take a different perspective on our financial situation and settle into the truth and the reality of it. All right, I'm going to put a pin in that one right now. But if your hairs on the back of your neck are standing up at any point in this conversation, pay attention, trust it, and know that that is a great starting point for what is needed for you at this juncture. If you like what you're hearing today, if it's helpful for you, then I am so glad. And I'm going to invite you to sign up for my newsletter because I publish lots of content to help you in times like these. All you have to do is visit the show notes and you'll find the link, or you can visit toscadimatteo.com/newsletter and sign up. I look forward to seeing you in your inbox. And that leads me to number 5, which is to take care of yourself, right? Financial stress is real, right? Whether it's based on truth or imagined reality, these times in between can be really stressful for us because we are not wired for uncertainty. We don't like uncertainty. We don't like not knowing what's coming around the corner. So by taking care of yourself, what I mean is whatever it is that you need to take care of you. I find that a lot of my clients end up ramping up their healthcare regimens, their focus on their body, which I think is awesome because it's also a very grounding thing to do. So that might look like having more consistent or regular workout regimens. That might mean setting up doctor's appointments that were long overdue. That might look like self-care practices, however you define that, like whether it's healing sessions or energy sessions to spa treatments to getting a fresh haircut. It's about taking care of your needs. And sometimes taking care of yourself also means giving yourself permission to have fun. And my wish for you above all else in this time of in between is to prioritize having fun above all else. above job searching, above figuring anything out. Give yourself permission to have fun because that will lead to so much magic. Oh my gosh. I wish that for you so badly. So part of like taking care of yourself, right, leads me to number 6, which is about asking yourself what you need. Sometimes that's a really hard thing to tap into. And yes, I do have a podcast episode about that, asking yourself what you need. I think it's titled The Number One Thing to Do to Get Unstuck. And the answer to that is asking yourself what you need. All right, but I digress. So asking yourself what you need will include like, hey, what support team do you need right now? What experiences do you need right now? What anchors might you need during this transition to help you feel more grounded and secure? This makes me think of a friend of mine I had that was laid off. This was years ago. And she went right into the grind of job searching, right? For all the reasons. And I had her up visiting with me in a like vacation rental I had at the time. And in our couple days together over the weekend, she ended up realizing what she needed. And what she needed was to not be in that grind of the job search, but rather to take some time and go visit her family in another country. That was game changing for her. But she had to really tap into what she really needed. And visiting family was one of those things. And I think part of that is because it's grounding, because it can feel safe, it can feel secure, it can just, and you're getting support, you're feeling supported. Gosh, that's a huge need, I think in these times of like just feeling supported and finding those folks that will make you feel that way. I also find this advice to be really important because the very first time that I left a job without a job in hand, it was very foreign to me. I actually did at that point have a coach in my life. I had been introduced the idea of having a career coach. And here's the kicker. I left that job and I didn't reach out to that coach at all. I thought I was supposed to be able to figure it out. I thought that my only task was to just find the next job. And what I didn't realize at the time was what I really needed was some guidance for how to handle this uncharted territory of being without a job because it had been decades of me just working nonstop by that stage. I wish that I could have realized that not only did I have this need for somebody to guide me both emotionally, and also with some direction, but also that I wish I gave myself permission. Because I think, right, coming back to the financial piece, I was also just like very worried about spending money because, now here I was not contributing to the household finances. And so I felt like I wasn't worthy of spending on things that weren't absolutely necessary. Gosh, this mindset stuff can really come into play and rear their ugly head when we are in this uncharted territory. So just to land the plane on this, give yourself the time to ask yourself what you need and then honor that because that's the hardest part. Maybe understanding what you need is the easy part. The hard part is giving yourself permission for that. I would guarantee that's the hardest part. All right. So number 7 is experiment with different types of structures. And I say this because when we all of a sudden have more time freedom, we can easily feel a bit lost because we live in worlds that are dictated by packed calendars. Of course, like we are trained from even our school age years to live our life on a calendar. And so when I say experiment, that is the operative word here. And this is going to morph over time, I guarantee it. Perhaps you experiment with what it's like to have no structure. Maybe you put some structure at the start of your day. Whatever it is, my advice is to play around with a way of approaching structure or lack thereof that is uncomfortable. And my guess is that for you, what will be uncomfortable is allowing for more flow in your life. And by that, I mean honoring your moods and what excites you versus being rigid about when you do what and for how long. Because again, we are conditioned to have a plan for almost every minute of the day. Most of us, I think some folks in the creative worlds maybe have a slightly different conditioning around that. But my guess is it's uncomfortable to look at a calendar and look at nothing on that calendar. And I think part of this in between time is to really find out about your natural rhythm. Likely your natural rhythm has been put on the back burner or beaten out of you over the years or over the course of your life because of how you were conditioned to be. And there will be times that you found your rhythm in this journey, and there will be times where you realize you need a different approach. None of this is static, it's always evolving. Look, for me, right, I spent decades in corporate with very rigid structures and with a mentality of a 9 to 5 or 9 to 7 workday, let's be honest. And I still have to decondition from this idea that I have to be in front of my computer by a certain time in the morning, right? And that I can walk away from it at a certain time in the evening. I have to continuously check on my own rhythm and where I'm at and what works for me. And that might mean scrapping a whole day and not working because I'm just not into it and accepting that and doing whatever is in my heart to do. So experiment with different types of structures in terms of not just your day, but your weeks and your months. And this leads me to kind of my last piece of advice, which is to take the pressure off of yourself. I think that's the common thread with all of the counsel that I've provided you today. Let your life unfold a little bit. Let the puzzle pieces gather. Move away from forcing energy and pay attention to your whispers and your signs of what that immediate next step is for you. Whether that next step is to step into a spa day, whether that next step is to create some rituals for yourself to find some grounding, whether that next step is to call a friend and let them know you're going through a hard time. The big theme here is to not be so hard on yourself. You are where you're meant to be. Nothing is wasted. Life is happening for you and not to you. So, how can you release the pressure that you're putting on yourself? That's my hope for you, is that you relieve that pressure valve. So, I actually kind of love that this is a list of 8 things because 8 also represents infinity. And that's what I think is possible. I think everything is possible when our world changes dramatically. The chips have been thrown up in the air for a reason. It's so that when they fall back down, a whole new picture gets captured. And I know it's uncomfortable not knowing what that picture might look like right now. And I know that there are realities of life of having to put food on the table and pay for rent. And if you can find a way to find just a little bit more levity in the journey, I think that will create openings for new possibilities, for new doors to open, for new relationships to be found, and for life to unfold in a way that really serves you. I hope that this has been helpful for you. I hope that you have gained some insight about what to do now. And I would encourage you to share this episode with anybody and everybody that you know that might be in between jobs right now. And look, I know there's a lot of you out there. And maybe that provides a little bit of solace to know that you're not alone, that a lot of people are in between, that a lot of industries are being disrupted, and that by far and by large, we are not in control of a lot of things, but we are in control of how we choose to use our time. And my hope for you is that you use this time of the in between to serve you, to lift you up, to celebrate yourself, to honor what you need, to honor what you want. And I know you're going to get there. But my hope for you is that you aren't forcing and driving and just doing all the doing until you've done some of these things on this list of 8. recommendations. All right. Love you so much. I'm so glad you were here in the Unlock Lab. And if you need some added support, if you know you need a guide in this journey, please reach out. My information is in the show notes. You can also visit CoachTosca.com. You go to the contact section and you can call me, you can email me, you can set up an exploratory call. This is the work that I do. I help people figure out what's next. I help people figure out how to navigate uncharted territory when we're in between things. So I look forward to hearing from you. And thanks for coming to the lab. Thanks for being here. I'm rooting for you. And ciao for now.